I stood on my son's front porch on Christmas Day, holding a suitcase in one hand and a bag of carefully wrapped gifts in the other. Snow clung to my boots. My heart was pounding, but I smiled. I had dressed in my best an emerald green dress that complemented my silver hair. I imagined laughter, warm hugs, the smell of turkey and cinnamon. Instead, the door opened and Mark looked at me like I was a stranger. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house," he said. For a second, I stood there frozen, thinking he was joking, but there was no flicker of warmth in his eyes, no hint of recognition in his voice, just cold dismissal. "Mark, it's me. It's Mom." He didn't flinch. "I think you've got the wrong address. There's no Mark here." Then he closed the door. I didn't cry. Not right away. I walked back down the snow-lined path, heels sinking into ice, the gifts rustling softly in my bag. My body moved on instinct, but my heart felt like it had been ripped from my chest. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't just a bad day. It was rejection, pure and deliberate. That moment didn't come from nowhere. It was the final note in a song that had been playing softly for years. But standing in that snow, outside the home I was never allowed to enter, I realized something had ended. Not just a holiday, not just a visit, a role, a place in someone's life. And maybe, just maybe, that ending would become my beginning. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 58 years old, and for 33 of those years I have been a mother first. Everything else second. I became a widow at 25. One morning I kissed my husband goodbye as he left for work. That afternoon, I got the call. A car accident, a drunk driver, gone in seconds. Mark was 15. Sophie was 13. And just like that, I wasn't just grieving, I was responsible for holding the entire world together. We had a modest home in Connecticut, a mortgage we could barely handle even with 2 incomes. After the funeral, I ran the numbers. I could barely afford the essentials. There was no family inheritance, no secret savings account, just a life that had to be rebuilt from ashes. So I sold the house. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital where I worked. I picked up extra night shifts, worked weekends, holidays, skipped meals. I cut my own hair to save on expenses. Learned to fix the plumbing myself. That old Buick I drove. I kept it running for 12 years, duct tape on the bumper and all. Because every spare dollar went to them. I packed lunches. I helped with essays. I made Halloween costumes from scratch because we couldn't afford store-bought ones. When Sophie wanted to join the school orchestra, I bought her a used violin on layaway. When Mark applied to NU, I took on a 3rd shift just to cover the deposit. They got what they needed, and then some. Mark graduated with honors, got a job at a financial firm in Boston, married his college sweetheart Elaine. Sophie went to UConn, then moved to Chicago for a job in marketing. They built lives I was proud of. I still am, in a way. But the calls stopped coming. Birthdays turned into quick texts. Visits grew fewer and further between. I kept telling myself it was fine. They were busy. They had lives. Isn't that what I worked so hard for? Diane, my sister, used to shake her head. They could at least call, she'd say. You did everything for them. But I brushed it off. They'll come around. I'm sure they will. And I kept giving. Even after they had jobs and homes of their own, I kept sending checks. $1,000 each month. Quiet support. Mark needed help with the new mortgage. Sophie had daycare costs. Then she called one day in tears her husband's commission had fallen through. I sent more. They thanked me, sure, but not with phone calls or visits, just with texts. Got it, thanks. Not a word about how I was, not a question about my day or my health, just transactions. And still, I told myself it was okay. Because that's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice, we stay quiet, we put everyone else first. Until something breaks. Looking back, the break didn't happen all at once. It wasn't that one moment on the porch. It was every missed call, every ignored birthday, every time I sent money I couldn't afford without even a thank you. It was years in the making. But the snap, what truly shifted the ground beneath me, was realizing that I wasn't even missed. Not really. I was needed, yes, but only for what I could give, not for who I was. And as painful as that truth was, it also planted a seed. A question. What if I chose myself just once? There's a quiet kind of loneliness that creeps in when you're technically not alone. When your phone still lights up but only when they need something. When holidays pass and your mailbox stays empty. So when you sit at the table with 2 place settings instead of 3, and realize no one is coming. It didn't start with that Christmas rejection. The truth is, I had been fading from their lives long before that day. There were birthdays missed, not just mine, but theirs. I remembered every one. Sent cards, gifts, even handwritten letters sometimes. In return, I got a text, often late, sometimes not at all. When I mentioned visiting, there was always a reason it wasn't a good time. Mark had client meetings. Sophie had a deadline, the kids had soccer. The house was a mess. Next month, maybe? They stopped calling me Mom in their messages. It was just hey or need help with. There's something in the way your name disappears from your child's mouth that feels like an erasure. Once, Sophie called because she couldn't figure out a health insurance form. I walked her through it, line by line, for nearly an hour. She hung up without saying thank you. Just, okay, got it, and the line went dead. Another time, Mark asked me to Venmo him $500 for Noah's dental work. He sent me a picture of the bill. I didn't even get a follow-up message after I sent the money. Still, I made excuses for them. They were busy, young parents, working professionals. I didn't want to be the clingy mom. I prided myself on being understanding, supportive, the cool mom who didn't make demands. But deep down it hurt, and the more I ignored it, the heavier it got. I started to realize that I was only visible when I had something to offer, a check, advice, a quick favor, but my presence, my company, my voice? That wasn't part of the deal anymore. I kept thinking of something my own mother used to say. The people who only come around when they need something will vanish the moment you have nothing left to give. I just never thought that would apply to my own children. This past December, I made a decision. I was going to spend Christmas with my grandchildren. I had only seen Emma and Noah a few times since they were born too far, too busy, too much going on, as Mark would always say. But this year, I didn't want to be a voice on the phone or a signature at the bottom of a check. I wanted to sit with them on the floor while they unwrapped gifts. I wanted to bake cookies with them, read them bedtime stories. I wanted to be their grandmother, not just a name they vaguely recognized. So I picked up the phone and called Mark. He answered on the third ring, his voice distracted, papers rustling in the background. Mom, what's up? Hi, sweetheart. I won't keep you. I just wanted to ask, would it be okay if I came for Christmas this year? I'd really love to see the kids open their presents. There was a pause. I could hear a door close, the office noise fading. Then he spoke again, his tone lower. Christmas, I don't know, Mom. Elaine's parents are coming, and we don't have a lot of space. I can stay at a hotel, I said quickly. I wouldn't be in the way. Another pause. Let me talk to Elaine and get back to you. He didn't. A week passed. I called again. It went to voicemail. I left a careful message. Mark, it's Mom. Just checking in about Christmas. I found a hotel nearby, very reasonable. Let me know. 3 days later, I got a text. Just a text. Christmas is fine. Dinner at 3. No hotel needed. You can have the guest room. That was it. No, can't wait to see you. No, the kids will be so excited. Still, my heart leapt. I booked my flight immediately. I spent hours wrapping presents. I even splurged on a new dress, emerald green, modest neckline, soft fabric that made me feel beautiful. I hadn't bought anything for myself in years. I told myself this year would be different. This year I would be part of the celebration. This year I would belong. I arrived in Boston on Christmas Eve, just after 2 in the afternoon. The flight had been bumpy, but my spirits were high. I sat in the taxi with my gifts nestled beside me, my suitcase in the trunk, and a nervous hope fluttering in my chest. Mark's neighborhood was picture-perfect, snow-dusted lawns, neatly trimmed hedges, twinkling lights in every window. I felt a quiet pride. My son had done well. I pulled my coat tighter as I approached the front door. I could see silhouettes moving behind the frosted glass. Laughter and music floated from inside. I rang the bell and waited, smoothing my coat and tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. Mark opened the door. He looked surprised. Mom, he said flatly, you're early. I smiled. The flight got in ahead of schedule. I just couldn't wait to see everyone. He didn't step aside. Behind him, I could see people in the living room, Elaine's parents, I assumed. Someone was pouring wine. Someone else was setting out cookies. I heard a child's voice, a giggle. Mark shifted his weight, blocking the doorway more completely. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow. I blinked. Your text said dinner at 3. That's Christmas dinner, he said, voice clipped. Tomorrow. I pulled out my phone, my hand starting to tremble. Right here it just says Christmas is fine. Dinner at 3. He barely glanced. That's not what I meant. Look, Mom, today is just family. Elaine's parents are here. We're doing our thing. Just family. The words sliced through me. I can come back tomorrow, I offered, trying to stay composed. Maybe you can point me to my hotel? The one you said I didn't need to book. Something like guilt flickered across his face. The guest room's not ready. We thought you were coming tomorrow. I stood there, holding my suitcase, trying to keep my voice steady. So where should I go? There's a Holiday Inn about 15 minutes away. I can call. So a small voice behind him interrupted. Daddy, who's at the door? Mark turned. Nobody, sweetheart. Go back to Grandma and Grandpa. Nobody. That's what I had become. And yet I managed to whisper, Merry Christmas, Mark. Give the children my love. Then I turned and walked away. I returned the next day, Christmas Day, at precisely 2:45 p.m. The snow had hardened into ice overnight. I walked slowly, carefully clutching my bag of gifts with both hands. I wore the emerald dress I had chosen so lovingly, the one I had bought to look nice in the family photos. My hair was curled softly at the ends, and I had even dabbed on lipstick, something I hadn't done in years. This was it, I told myself. Yesterday had been a misunderstanding. Today would be different. I reached the doorstep and rang the bell. Mark answered. His face was unreadable. Before I could speak, before I could say Merry Christmas or I'm here, he said the words that broke me. Sorry, I think you have the wrong house. I stared at him. I thought he was joking, waiting for a smile, some hint of apology. But there was nothing. Mark, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It's me. It's Mom. He didn't move. His eyes didn't soften. There's no Mark here. I looked past him. The living room was decorated beautifully. A glowing tree stood in the corner, surrounded by neatly wrapped gifts. The dining table was set for dinner, the silverware gleaming under the chandelier. Elaine's head was bent toward a platter of food. She didn't even turn around. Then the door closed. I stood there in silence. Frozen. Humiliated. I walked down the steps slowly. My feet felt numb. My hands were shaking. I made it to the sidewalk before my phone buzzed. Mark's name flashed on the screen. I answered. Mom, he said, sounding casual, even amused. Sorry about that. Elaine's parents are super traditional. They don't know about, the financial arrangement. We're just trying to keep things peaceful. Financial arrangement. I repeated, the words foreign in my mouth. Yeah, the monthly support. Look, just go back to your hotel. I'll call you tomorrow. I don't have a hotel, Mark, I said quietly. I came here to spend Christmas with my family. He sighed. Mom, I can't do this right now. Just give us some space, okay? We'll figure it out later. I whispered, what did I do? His voice hardened. She thinks the money she sends every month buys her a seat at the table. He hadn't hung up yet. But I had heard enough. I let the phone fall into the snow. I picked up the phone slowly, my fingers stiff from the cold. The call was still active. I ended it with a quiet tap and stared down at the screen, the words still echoing in my mind. She thinks the money she sends every month buys her a seat at the table. That was it, wasn't it? That was how they saw me, not as a mother, not as a grandmother. Just a source, a bank account, a tool to be hidden when inconvenient, an embarrassment to be explained away. I turned around and began walking toward the main road. My suitcase wheels caught in the slush, dragging behind me like an old wound. At the Holiday Inn, I checked in without a word. The clerk smiled politely. Staying long, ma'am? I nodded. A few nights. That night, I didn't cry. There were no more questions spinning in my head, no more wondering what I had done wrong. For the first time in years, my thoughts weren't tangled in guilt or obligation. I opened my banking app. With calm fingers, I canceled the automatic transfers to both my children. It took less than 60 seconds. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and stared at the quiet screen. No vibrations. No incoming demands, just silence. And peace. A peace I hadn't known in decades. I slept that night without dreams, without tension in my chest, just stillness. The stillness that comes when a long, painful chapter finally closes. And a new one waits quietly, patiently to begin. The next morning, my phone lit up with missed calls. 25 in total. 15 from Mark, 10 from Sophie. Text messages followed, some panicked, some demanding. Mom, the transfer didn't go through. Is everything okay? Mom, I need that money for Noah's daycare. Please call ASAP. What the hell, Mom? I'm about to be late on my mortgage. Call me now. I stared at the screen as if it belonged to someone else. There were no messages asking if I was all right. No, where are you? No, we're worried about you. Just money. I silenced the phone, placed it face down on the nightstand, and stepped into the shower. As hot water streamed over me, something inside me began to shift. For over 3 decades, I had defined myself by what I gave. I was the mother who always showed up, always paid, always adjusted. But what did I have left? Now, standing alone in a quiet hotel room, I had space to breathe, to think, and maybe to dream. After dressing, I walked to a nearby cafe. I ordered a cappuccino and a breakfast sandwich. Sat by the window and watched the snow melt under the morning sun. Then, I pulled out my tablet. For years, I had dreamed of traveling. I had saved articles about places I'd never gone, bookmarked photos of temples and oceans, read about volunteer programs for retired nurses. But I'd always found reasons to stay. The children might need me. It wasn't safe to go alone. The money could help someone else. Excuses. I opened a travel site. Typed in a destination I had whispered to myself for years. And with one steady click, I'd booked a one-way ticket to Thailand. Departure, 2 days from now. For the first time in decades, I felt something I almost didn't recognize. Excitement. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sophie. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Mom, finally, she said, skipping any greeting. What's going on with the transfers? Mark said his didn't go through either. No concern, no warmth, straight to the point. I sipped my cappuccino before replying. I've decided to discontinue the monthly transfers. There was silence on the line, then a gasp of disbelief. You've what? You can't do that. I'm counting on that money for the baby's nursery. I'm sorry to hear that, I said calmly. I suggest you and Daniel adjust your budget accordingly. Her voice sharpened. This is about Mark, isn't it? He told me what happened. It was a misunderstanding. You're being ridiculous. It's not about Mark, I replied. It's about me. About recognizing that I've allowed myself to become invisible, and I'm done with that. She laughed a cold, dismissive sound. You're worth, Mom. You're almost 60. This isn't the time for some midlife crisis. The words didn't sting the way they used to. I'm 58, I said quietly. And for the first time in my life, I'm choosing me. So that's it. You're just cutting us off because your feelings got hurt. I've supported both of you for years. That's not cutting off, it's stepping back. She tried again, this time with softness, almost desperation. Mom, please. The baby needs you. Funny how quickly I'd gone from irrational to indispensable. I breathed in deeply. I'll send a gift, Sophie. The same way you send birthday cards when you remember. Then I ended the call. After I hung up, I expected guilt to creep in. It didn't. I felt still. I spent the rest of the day making quiet decisions. I called my landlord and gave notice on my apartment. I rang Diane, my sister, and asked if she could help pack up my things, store what mattered, donate what didn't. Then I contacted the hospital where I'd worked for 32 years. I thanked them. And I resigned. No dramatic speech, no final shift, just a simple promise to send a formal email later that night. By evening, my phone had stopped ringing, no more calls, no more messages. I imagined Mark and Sophie talking to each other, trying to figure out what had changed, wondering where their mother had gone. She hadn't vanished. She had simply returned to herself. I ordered room service, opened my laptop, and searched for a quiet place to stay near the river in Bangkok. And I smiled. Not because I was running, but because I was finally free. The next morning, a knock came at my hotel room door. I opened it to find Mark standing there. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept. He had tracked me down through my credit card activity. "Mom," he said, his voice quiet, unsure, "we need to talk." I stepped aside, but I didn't smile. I didn't rush to hug him. I simply nodded toward the armchair by the window. He sat. I stayed standing. "You've caused quite a panic," I said evenly, folding my hands. He looked up at me, searching my face for something: familiarity, softness, maybe forgiveness. But what he found was someone different. Someone who had stopped begging to be invited. Someone who no longer measured her worth by her children's approval. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm clear." He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand gently. "I'm leaving tomorrow, Mark, not from you, from the version of myself I no longer want to be." And I meant it.